Okay, today is Monday, September 20th, first day of class back after Hurricane Ida. We're going to be reconfiguring the class. From now on, when you see your lesson plans are going to be labeled class A, B, C, just for after Ida. If there's anyone that's in class that is worried about their grade or anything, tomorrow is the last day to drop with a W. I know we haven't really done much or anything. I don't foresee anyone having that issue in this class. I mean, I'm not judging that on most stuff. I'm just judging that on previous classes and things like that, in the way of kind of revamp the first half of the class to kind of help facilitate everything through. That being said, we're not going to have a midterm. There's just not enough time to teach you everything and to test you on it at the same time. So instead of that, we're going to be doing a mini midterm project. We're going to start that, and this will cover everything in a much smaller version than doing your own house than we had originally tried to. But the important thing is it's going to teach you everything that you need to know. I have to excuse me, my allergies are crazy. So we're going to do a little mini midterm project. This project is pretty much based on the actual midterm that I have people do. So even though we only have 2 weeks left before midterm grades are due, there's more than enough time to teach you everything that you need to know. It'll just be in an accelerated pace and at a much smaller level. But we can take those skills and we'll add to them on for the second half of the semester, and that's the important part. So we'll start a new project, the work that you've done. If you have turned it in, I have looked at it. I've made comments on it. If some of your assignments I was not able to open, so I do need everyone to be working in Revit 2020. If you have not downloaded 2020, what you need to do is go back into Revit, go back to here where it says 2020. And select the 2020 box. I need everybody in 2020. It defaults to 2022, and I think that's why some people have 2022, but go back and start with 2020. This is not going to affect your previous work that you already did. Consider that practice, because going forward, you'll download everything and work in 2020. So we'll do that.
Ms. Martin, I saw you had left a comment on mine. How long do we have to do that by the end of the day?
To get 2020?
Like to resubmit it on in 2020, because
Oh, you don't need to resubmit the old work. You don't need to resubmit the old work.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Because mine was saved on 2022.
Yeah, if you did, once you upload 2020, you can resave it and then you can submit it as 2020. You don't need to redraw it, but you can resubmit it if you want. But just with the pace of the class, we're going to go ahead and start with a new project. So the other work is basically was good practice. If you were able to turn it in, I was able to give you a grade on it. That grade did not affect your overall GPA or your overall grade in this class. It was just kind of a submit work. So you don't have to worry about going back and turning in that old work, but going forward, I would suggest downloading 2020 today and starting everything new in 2020 moving forward.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah, don't worry about the old stuff. We just need to start a new project and move forward. There's too many variables that if we work on all different projects that we have to deal with. But by doing this new project, everybody's going to be on the same page and you'll learn the same stuff. And that's really the important thing. Excuse me. All right, so this little mini midterm project is going to be due on October 1st for your midterm grade. The final midterms are supposed to take place the 27th through the 1st, or the 27th through the 4th this week right here, which is next week. So what we're going to do is just take these 4 days, the 20th, 22nd, 27th, and 29th, and use those as just regular class days as opposed to any kind of midterm exam. And then if you get your project turned in by the 1st, which you'll have more than enough time to do, that way I can get your grade in by the 5th. I can get that graded over the weekend and get your grade in by the 5th. So that's what our plan is. No midterm exam. We're just doing the midterm project. just to get everybody up to speed and get moving. All right, everybody's going to download 2020. And before we begin the new project and talk about that, does anybody have any questions about what I just went over? Okay, if you do,
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I had my work saved on my laptop, but it got messed up due to the light keep going out. I gotta download the Revit to 2020. I had the 2022, so I don't think it really matters on that.
No.
But is any way that I can get the work that I had on the 2020, save it and get it to the new 2020? Because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, let's talk about that offline, because I want to get this caught up on class, but right after we finish class, let's revisit that. We don't actually need that work right now because it's considered good practice, but we're going to kind of start over with a new project right now. We're going to start over from the beginning, doors, windows, walls, just kind of review, because it's been a week since we've actually kind of played with this stuff. So I'm going to give you all a review, and then we're going to jump into learning new stuff today. So is that okay? Will that work?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So beginning new project. We're going to start a new little mini project today. Everybody's going to work in 2020, and going forward, we're going to start with this new project. Today, we're going to review walls, doors, and windows. We're going to retouch on materials. We touched on those very briefly before, but this is really the new stuff, is this materials that we're going to talk about. And then the real new stuff we're going to talk about today is how to do floors, and the floors will include slabs and finished floors. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into Canvas. Okay, on our mods, let me make this mod live. You're going to have a new midterm project, AI after IDA. So let me make that live for you. When you go in there, make sure that you do have access to everything before we end class today. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that project right now. So when we open this up, you'll see that you should have access to midterm exam instructions and midterm floor plan. This is my typical midterm exam that we're going to be doing, but we're going to be doing as a mini project for all of us to do. So let's open up the midterm floor plan first. And you may want to print this at home if you have that capability, just because it's easier to work from a sheet rather than going back and forth unless you have two screens. So let's rotate this. And this is the midterm project that we're going to be doing. So it's just a simple building, 30 feet by 23 feet, 3.5 inches. I have it set to 3.5 inches just to test you on your temporary dimension skills. And then we've got our windows, doors, and everything else kind of set in place. So this is what we're going to be doing. Obviously much easier than a lot of y'all's more complicated houses, but we're still going to get the gist down of what we need to know. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Revit, and I'm going to start with creating walls again. Oh wait, let's open up this midterm exam instructions as well. This is good because this is what the basic midterm exam looks like. And this is going to help you with actually your final exam too, because I use the same format. So let's just check off the few things that we're going to be starting with. So we're going to do interior walls and exterior walls. When we create our walls, we're going to create our exterior walls so that they're 5.5 inches. They'll be composed of 1/2 inch siding, 3.5 inches framing, and 1/2 inch gypboard. For our interior walls, they're going to be 4.5 inches, 1/2 inch gyp, 3.5 inch framing, and 1/2 inch gyp on the other side as well, since it's an interior wall. Today, we're going to also create a slab. Slab's going to be 17 inches cast in place concrete, and we're going to create finished floors as well. Per the instructions on here, when you start the typical exam, you would draw the included CAD floor plan in Revit using temporary dimensions to achieve the correct measurements. Continue drawing the floor plan in Revit using the following parameters. Pay attention to where the dimension lines are located. So pretty straightforward as far as what we're going to have to do. So let's go ahead and jump into Revit and create our exterior walls to start with. So I'm going to jump into Revit. We're going to start a new project again. So this one's going to be new. Remember here, we're going to select architectural template. Hit OK. All right, now we're up and running. So remember, the first thing we do when we create a wall is we want to go to Architecture tab, Build Panel, Wall Tool. We'll click on that wall. Remember, it defaults to this basic generic 8-inch wall. We always want to create new stuff from a generic, so we'll just use that default, and we'll hit Edit Type. And remember, before you create anything new, or change anything in here, you always want to duplicate and rename it. So here I'm going to name this wall exterior 5.5 inches, and then my initials. Hit OK. Now that I have a new wall type, I'm going to go into this edit part right here. This is where we add our different pieces of the wall. Remember when we had talked about that, we said we wanted to create a 5.5-inch wall that's 1/2-inch siding, 3.5-inch framing, and 1/2 inch of gyp. So in order to do that, I need to add 2 more pieces of material. So I'll go ahead and insert 2 more pieces. Remember, the only thing that lies within this core boundary is our structural material. So the other material, this exterior siding, I'm going to have to move up and outside of the core boundary. And this will be my gyp board. I'm going to move this down and outside of the core boundary. So we have a nice layer cake effect. So remember, only thing within the core boundary is our structural layer. That we know is going to be 3.5 inches. Actually, no, that's going to be 4.5 inches if I make my math is off. That's supposed to be, there we go. I'll have to correct that. Sorry, y'all. So yeah, make this 4.5 inches. This exterior siding, just for us to get that process, we're going to make that 1/2 inch. And our gyp board on the inside is going to be 1/2 inch as well. So when all those add up, they add up to our 5.5-inch exterior wall. So we have our sizes correct. Next thing we want to do is change our function. Function of this exterior wall. This exterior piece is going to be a finish layer 1. Remember, if it shows on the outside of the house, exterior side, if it shows outside, it's a finish layer 1. And then inside, this will be gyp board, and we'll make that finish layer 2 since it's on the inside of the house. That's just how Revit organizes the information. So let's go ahead next and pick up the materials. When we go into our structural piece of material, we click on there, you get this little box. That's going to open up our materials browser. This is where we're going to select softwood lumber. This is just what we use in this project. Typically, you would use framing lumber, but we don't have that as an option right now. So we're just going to use softwood lumber. You always want to click on the Use Render Appearance box. Now let's go ahead and hit OK. Next thing is going to be, excuse me, our interior side, which will be our gyp layer.
Can you hold on for 1 second? I'm having a hard time finding that softwood lumber.
Okay. You can also type it up in here under the search bar, softwood lumber, and it'll find that for you. I am going a little fast. If you can't keep up, that's okay. It's just this is kind of a repeat part of what we did before. So
Yeah, I found it. Thank you.
okay, yeah, no worries. Okay, so the next would be gyp board. So we can type that in here if you just want to type GYP for Chipboard, and that'll pop up. We can select Chipboard. And then also you want to do user render appearance here as well and hit OK. And so we've got our 2 layers. We've got the exterior layer left. This is where we want to kind of change things up a little bit. We can kind of play with it a little bit, make things a little bit more interesting, that everybody use the same material. So we're going to learn how to create materials a couple of different ways. So if we want to create a material within our editing process for what we're already doing, we can do that. So if I want to jump into this finish layer, everything that's already loaded in Revit in this particular model is available here. So as we kind of scroll through this, we'll see that there's not a lot of options as far as picking different finishes and things like that. So if we wanted to create more materials within this space, we can come down here to this little orb on the bottom and see it says creates and duplicates materials. So if we click on that, we always want to start with create new. And then once you have that up, let's go ahead and rename it. And let's call this, exterior. And I'm going to use siding and my initials just so I know this is the one I created. So I want to create a new material for my exterior siding. So in order to put an asset behind that, I'm going to come down here to the asset browser, this little box next to it. I'm going to click on that. And this is where it gets fun. You get a whole new array of fun stuff to choose from, how you want to make that exterior siding look. Yeah, I'll leave that up to you. As you click through here and kind of play with it, you'll notice that obviously these are different types of bricks because you can see that it's a wall shape and they have different wall shapes for a paint. So you can use that. You can use whatever you want on here. There's also, if you flip through the rest of it, you can see there's other carpet. You can search up here to look for stuff, but the search is not very good. I recommend just kind of scrolling through and looking for stuff. Play with it, see if you find this useful. I find that most people find this a little bit more confusing when they use the search bar rather than just kind of scrolling through and looking to see what you can find. Obviously, these are glass partition walls, what the glass looks like. The more you kind of play with it, the more you'll figure it out. This is decorative blocks. So I'm not going to be grading you on what your, what design choices you choose, what colors or anything you choose. I had one student make her entire building out of different metals, which is actually pretty cool. So I'm going to leave that up to you, what material that you want to choose. But as we scroll down, you'll notice that there's more and more available. If you wanted to make a rock house, you could do that. I'm just going to be pretty boring and pick this horizontal 6-inch beige. I'll double click on that. You notice that there is a lock on here. This means that the information regarding this piece of material cannot be changed. It doesn't mean you can't use it. It just means you can't go in and change the parameters involved with it. So in order to have this be assigned to your material, you can double click it, or you can click this double arrow down here. I always just double click, and then I'll go ahead and close this. And notice that that is there now. That's what it's going to look like when it's rendered. If I jump back to my graphic appearance, I need to make sure I click on use render appearance, and that way it'll be the same color.
Quick question. When I go to click on horizontal 6-inch beige, it shows a little lock symbol.
Yeah, it's locked. It doesn't mean you can't use it. It means that it's locked and you can't change the parameters that are involved in that particular material. But you double click on it and you can still use it. So you can't change anything that's involved in that material, but you can use it. It's just locked. The material is locked, so you can't change the parameters.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So now we'll go ahead and hit OK. Let's jump over to our little preview. Remember, you do have this available. You don't need to open that up. It's just something else to look at. And so we've got everything assigned. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And okay again, and jump out of that. And if we jump back to, well, I was 30 foot this way, so I'm going to just start drawing my wall now. I'm going to click. Actually, I'm just going to create a rectangle, and then I'm going to go back and fix the dimensions. So we've just got a basic rectangle is what we're looking at for the first project. Let me go ahead and jump back to minimize. Here's my floor plan. So we're looking at 30 foot by 23 and 3.5 inches. So that means when I go back to Revit and I click on this wall over here, this is where I'm going to change my temporary dimensions. Remember, this is going to be going from the exterior wall to the exterior wall. So as long as those nodes are in the right place, now I can change this dimension to 30 feet. At this time, I want to lock this in place. I don't want it to move, so I'm going to click on the dimension symbol. I'm going to click on the dimension line, and I'm going to lock this in place. Once we've done that, we don't need to worry about keeping this temporary dimension around. It's just going to muddy up the drawing as we continue working. So I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to delete it. When it deletes it, it does tell you that even though you deleted it, it is still constrained in place, and that's exactly what we want. So the next wall is going to be 23 feet, 3.5 inches. So let's jump to that. So I'll click this wall. That'll give me the dimensions for this one. Temporary dimensions in place for exterior wall to exterior wall.